is the voice of reason with Andy Hooser.
Look at that. It's that time again to start off a whole new day, a whole new week. Welcome into the voice of reason. Hopefully for many wrapping up their day. If not, then starting off that second shift. I've done that second and third shift, and holy cow, is it brutal. Welcome into the show. We have a lot to get to today. It is one where you start off the week with a bang, so to speak. Bottom of the hour, John O'Neill, author of the book The Dancer and the Devil. We'll be talking about the latest out of Russia and the Ukraine, what's going on with that conflict, where are we at with Vladimir Putin, and more. We'll get to some of that. Can I just be the first to say on radio, I'm not getting a monkeypox vaccine. Just throwing it out there. Not going to get that one. I know that we'll get to that here in a little bit as well. Welcome into the show. This is The Voice of Reason. I am Andy Hooser, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on our flagship radio station all over the country. Radio, TV, live streaming, and podcasting. Great to have you along today. Your millennial general reporting for duty like we do every single day. I don't want to waste any time because there's a lot to talk about today. We have elections tomorrow in some states for primaries, but some policy out of Washington, D.C., that we need to get to and talk about, and we don't get to do this very often, but in studio with us in our What's Trending of the Day.
What's trending today
is my very own congressman, great friend, a great man up in Washington, D.C., fighting the good fight from the 4th District of the state of Kansas here, Congressman Ron Estes with us here. Congressman, how are you, my friend?
Hey, Andy, how you doing?
It is good to see you. It has been a little bit since we've had you in studio, so first off, welcome back home to the district and out of the cesspool of Washington, D.C.
Well, it's great to be home all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to talk about, and I know we have short time, so I appreciate, first off, you swinging by here and talking to us. The big stories, we've had inflation, we've had the economy. We'll get to all that here in just a little bit. But some news actually on the immigration front just broke over the weekend and on Friday with Title 42. Obviously, the Biden administration wanting to rid of Title 42, meaning that we can stop someone from coming into the country if we're concerned about health risks with COVID-19. Trump started it. They wanted to end it. And now the courts ended up stopping that one. I almost think the Biden administration kind of went, whew, because they were getting a lot of heat for that one, weren't they?
Yeah, they've gotten a lot of heat because even their Democrat members of elected representatives and others are recognizing that there's just so many problems going on.
Yeah,
I mean, you can count one after the other the failures of the Biden administration, and if you just start talking about the immigration and border security, I mean, stopping the wall, stopping the Remain in Mexico policy, allowing thousands of people to come across the border every day. You know, even President Obama's administration knew that. I mean, their statement was that if there were 1,000 people a day coming across the border, then they considered that too many. Biden's been allowing 7,000 a day, and if they eliminated Title 42, they were estimating that it would be 18,000 people a day would come across the border illegally, and so it's actually good that this judge said, okay, we need to follow the laws that talk about health and human service, health-related aspects. And it's the same thing we're doing. You know, if you look at if you came into the country illegally, U.S. citizens who wanted to fly back into the United States, they'd have to have a COVID test and be negative, whereas they were allowing all of the illegals to come across the border without any kind of check is what their plan would have been.
It's unfortunate. It's wild because we have all these immigration laws on the books of the process on how someone can apply for a refugee status or for a card, or a green card, or a work visa, a student visa, whatever. We have all of these laws that are on the books, and we're hanging on to this Title 42 right now as kind of the last hope because none of the other ones are actually being followed. I mean, if we would just follow our own laws, and oh, by the way, maybe not just encourage and be like, hey, if you come here, we'll give you all these awesome social programs. That might be kind of a thing too, I think. But we're hanging on this one thing right now that's the Biden administration, like you said, is trying to repeal. They've stopped production of the wall. They're just letting the open borders. The catch and release programs are back in play. It's a disaster all around, and it's something that the media has even just stopped talking about because they realize it's kind of a losing battle for them, isn't it?
Yeah, when they've really broken so many things. And you know, Secretary Mayorkas came and talked to Congress, and he said, you know, his statement was that they were effectively managing these thousands of people that are coming across the border every day. And he's wrong. I mean, they're not effectively managed. In fact, the issue is we shouldn't be having this many people cross the border illegally every day. No. I mean, that's his role as Health and Human Services Director of Homeland Security to help make sure that the borders are secure, that we want immigration. I mean, the United States is the biggest immigrant country in the world, and it always has been, and it always will be. And so we need to support that, but we need to make sure that we have legal immigration. We need to make sure we secure our borders. so we know who comes across. I mean, it's so important to know, you know, that you're not allowing terrorists, that you're not allowing, and in some cases we're seeing a lot more drugs coming across. Fentanyl now, and drug overdoses from fentanyl and other things it's the leading cause of death for adults 18 to 45.
Yeah.
And it's because they've just had this open borders policy and allowing all these people to come across. And it's really sad. They seem to go out of their way to break good policy, and particularly if it came up during the Trump administration. I mean, they've intentionally looked at how to stop it, and it's a sad state that they're in charge of what they have this responsibility for, and they're just not getting the job done.
Vice President Kamala Harris, has she made it to the border yet? She was supposed to be the czar of the task force for immigration and got kicked out of Central America, but yet she hasn't quite gone to the border yet, has she?
She really hasn't. I mean, now that she's gone to Europe, you know, she can go to the border. She's been to Europe twice, so, you know, as she jokingly talked about, which is kind of sad because, you know, I saw a headline today that they've basically removed immigration from her schedule in terms of things that she's doing, which is a testament to what's going on with the Biden administration, is that they're not getting the job done. I mean, they're talking a lot. The media is providing them cover and not holding them accountable for the things that they're either failing on or just not getting done.
Yeah.
And obviously, in this case, it's a huge problem. It's an issue for the country when we have people being flown under cover of darkness all around the country, and we don't know it. It appears that the American government is being involved in this human trafficking to help move these people around the country, and our laws need changed. I mean, our immigration laws need to be addressed. It's too difficult for somebody to go through the process legally, and certainly we need to make sure that the people that come in illegally are handled appropriately.
Right.
But we do need to improve our immigration laws. And obviously, we need to do work on our border security.
Well, and like you said, we just need to stop aiding in the trafficking to getting the individuals in the caravans from coming on up here and actually working with the nations they're coming from to fix them, to get rid of the illegal activity, the cartels, the overlords, the tyrants, whatever's going on there, to give them an opportunity to actually make a good country for themselves, as opposed to trying to flee thousands of miles over to our U.S. border and overwhelm our system. It's just a bad deal all around, I think, for even their countries as well. It's Congressman Ron Estes from the 4th District here in the state of Kansas. Let's shift gears a little bit. You're on the Ways and Means Committee. You get to handle the finances of the government, or at least you get to bang your head against the wall while the others do their stuff. We're dealing with 8.5% inflation rates right now. We're dealing with $5 gas across parts of the country. Here in Kansas, where we're at, it's over $4 now, or $4-ish across most of ours. And from what we hear, it's not getting any better. And when we ask the Biden administration about it, all they say is, we're paying off the deficit in records amount. We're doing great because we're paying off the deficits, and we're doing better than anybody else when it comes to paying off debts for the country. Is that true?
Oh, it's a misdirection as well. I mean, President Biden pushed through this $3.5 trillion spending boondoggle in his first 100 days in office, and now he's comparing this year, when he doesn't have a $3.5 trillion spending boondoggle, and saying, oh, well, look, we've reduced the spending, we've reduced the deficit. In the meantime, they've basically, this is another area where it's basically been failure. I mean, from the get-go, the first week they were in office, Biden administration went after the fossil fuels industry, took away American independence in terms of our energy independence. And what we've seen is a steady climb of gas prices. In fact, even today, I mean, this week, gas prices are up higher than they were last week. Yeah. And, you know, the first year that Biden was in office, gas prices went from an average of $2.31 to over $3.48 in that very first year. That was long before Russia did an invasion of Ukraine and attack there, which that goes to show that when world events happen, you need to be prepared. And what the Biden administration has done is weaken the country and actually hampering our economy. I mean, we had a booming economy that was coming out of the COVID-19, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that helped set the economy going forward. And now with gas prices the way they are, we're seeing that feed into inflation because you have to rely on gas and diesel to get food to the grocery store and get all your other goods delivered if you're having new furniture or other things. And that's just driving through the economy in general and having some devastating consequences. And there's talk now that we're going to go into recession because the Federal Reserve is going to have to raise interest rates in order to stop the inflation that's been caused by Biden's mismanagement of the oil and gas.
How does that work? I don't understand how raising interest rates lowers inflation rates. That doesn't make any sense to me.
The real driver for inflation is too much money chasing the same amount of goods. It goes back to supply economics, supply and demand. And so basically, if there's three people that want to buy the same two items, then they're going to get into a bidding war and pay more.
Sure.
And that's where inflation comes from, is when more people have more money that's out there chasing the same amount of goods. And so what raising interest rates does is say, okay, well, now in some cases I can't borrow to buy that car, borrow to buy that house, or
it's going to kind of weed out some of the market.
To make that investment. And what that does is it reduces some of that demand, which then allows prices to level off and stabilize. Problem is now they've allowed it to go so long. The Federal Reserve and Treasury Secretary Yellen were making the big political comments last year that, inflation is just transitory. It's not going to be a big problem.
Right.
And now they're behind the curve, which means that because prices have risen so high, now we're starting to see a need for wages to come up, which is then going to create another cycle of inflation.
Yep.
And so it's really problematic what they've done and allowed to happen to our economy.
Well, it's the vicious cycle, and that's what happens when we print too much damn money. That's what it comes down to, isn't it? I mean, last year, like you said, with all the stimulus payments and all the spending from Biden and with the infrastructure bill and everything else, it just printed money on the deficit that we didn't have any money for. We printed off, and now we have way too much money in the system, and it's just causing that massive inflation rate.
It really is, and it's going to be a long-term consequences, because we're already seeing now the wage increases, even though they're not enough to offset inflation, but they add another cost and another burden. And when you look at small businesses, I mean, over 70%, over 3/4 of businesses have already raised prices.
Yeah.
And the last survey I saw, there were 60% of the businesses are worried about whether they'll be able to stay in business because of the rising costs that they can't pass on to consumers.
Unbelievable. And it's only going to get worse. It's not going to be like an end-of-the-year fix. I mean, we're a couple years out on this battling it, aren't we?
Yeah, it really is. I expect the last 2 months, inflation's been, 8.3% in March and 8.5% in March and 8.3% in April. The 8.5% was record high, 40-year high in terms of inflation. I do think that'll taper off a little bit as interest rates rise, but it'll be at the end of the year. I still think we'll be at around a 5 or 6% inflation rate, because it just takes time to catch up through the process.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Let's take a break here real quick. When we come back, I want to continue this conversation with the food shortage, the latest with the gas and energy as well, like you mentioned, and then get your thoughts on some other issues with the last couple minutes that we have. It's a Monday. Boy, we're going to cram a lot into this program today here. For the Voice of Reason is Congressman Estes from the 4th District right here in the state of Kansas, my friend here, and my representative. Will do some more of that when we come back here on a Monday episode of the Voice of Reason. Stay here.